Good morning. This is Bill Shalio, Executive Director of Economic Development, part of Department of Infrastructure and Planning Growth. We appreciate your patience. We have a third member in transit and had been waiting, but we're going to get the meeting started. Oh, he's walking in. Okay. So we're gonna just take a minute, and I appreciate everybody's patience. Just remind you of some of these things. There's just something no matter actually what. Oh yeah. Okay.
Be worried about breaking it or losing it.
Bigger issue we have. Right now, I'm with Robert Greenberg.
Somebody broke into piano resets and
Surfboard.
I don't know how he knew he was walking in. I don't know how he knew he was walking in.
I say we just get started. We got to get going. So we're going to get the meeting started. We're going to call the meeting to order. The first part of the meeting, point 2, administration of oaths. And so those will be administered by Frank Fotia.
all right. I'm gonna go ahead and raise your right hand and repeat after me. Say, I repeat your name in full and then repeat the oath after me.
Jackie Stout,
Do you solemnly swear and affirm
you solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and the Constitution of
and the Constitution of
the State of Indiana,
the State of Indiana.
and I will faithfully, impartially, and lawfully
I will faithfully, partially, and lawfully
carry out my duties
carry out my duties
as a member of the Board of Directors
as a member of the Board of Directors
of the St. Joseph County Redevelopment Authority.
of the St. Joseph County Redevelopment Authority.
Congratulations. Get you to sign those oaths.
You signed at the top, correct? Yep. Okay. My legal name's Stout, that's why I. Almost had a duck.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Stand up.
We're good. Yeah. I, Tyler Gillian,
Do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and the Constitution of
and the Constitution of
the State of Indiana,
the State of Indiana,
and will faithfully, impartially, and lawfully
and will faithfully, partially, and lawfully
carry out my duties
carry out my duties
as a member of the Board of Directors
as a member of the Board of Directors
of the St. Joseph County Redevelopment.
of the St. Joseph County Redevelopment Authority.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Please don't ever show my handwriting to anybody. It's yours.
Tyler, did you get a packet?
I did.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay.
All right, next on the agenda is election of officers. We'll be electing 3 officers, a president, a vice president, and then a combined secretary and treasurer. The way we'll do that is we'll open the floor for nominations for each position, then we'll nominate individuals for that position and then individually vote on that and then move on to the next position. So now I'd open the floor for nominations for president of the redevelopment authority. Any nominations?
Do you want us to speak?
One of you nominate, yeah.
Yeah, I nominate Tina Wilson for president.
I second.
Any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll have a motion. Motion to nominate Tina Wilson as president of the redevelopment authority.
Second.
Yes.
We need a first,
Second.
a second. We have a first and a second. Now we'll vote. Ms. Horvath, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Gillian
Aye.
and Ms. Wilson.
Aye.
Motion carries. Ms. Wilson is now the president of the redevelopment authority. Next position that we'll elect is vice president. We'll open the floor for nominations for election of vice president. Any nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, a motion to elect Jackie Horvath as vice president of the redevelopment authority would be appropriate.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Gillian, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Wilson?
Aye.
And Ms. Horvath?
Aye.
Motion carries. Ms. Horvath is elected as vice president of the redevelopment authority. Next and final position is opening the floor for nominations for secretary and treasurer.
Would nominate Tyler Gillian.
We have a motion.
A motion.
We have a motion in the
Second.
okay, we have a motion. You're fine. We have a motion in a second. And we'll vote. Ms. Horvath, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Wilson?
Aye.
And Mr. Gillian?
Aye.
Motion carries. Mr. Gillian is now secretary and treasurer of the redevelopment authority.
Just as a matter of note, we're gonna get to do this fun all again in January after the first year. So I appreciate your service for the next 20 some days and we'll look forward to doing this again next year. We have no minutes for this meeting as this is the first meeting of this body. So we'll skip to the general business and resolution 2023-01. And I guess by way of background, so over the last couple of years, we've been working with General Motors / Samsung SDA to develop a battery plant on a New Carlisle area. The battery plant project is under construction presently. Major milestones are being passed every day. Site grading is well underway. They anticipate doing foundations and starting foundation work yet this year. Steel will go up early spring. As part of all of that work, the county, through its development agreement, had made representations and will make happen extension of water, sewer, and roadway improvements and other utility extensions to the site. But not only to the site, but also to the area to provide for other business development opportunities in the area. As part of that, we anticipate that the work that we have committed to will cost somewhere in the range of $40 to $45 million. We anticipate that work, the first milestone of that work has to be done in June of this next year. So we have to have water extended from Larison Boulevard into the site. By December of next year, we'll have to have water extended from an improved water treatment plant to the site. Sewer has to be done in that time frame. So there's a whole bunch of activity that will have to happen to make the plant in a position that it can be ready for operations starting in late 2025, early 2026. Full operation or substantial completion of the project is scheduled for December 2027. And substantial completion of the project is roughly a 3.5 million square foot building with 1,750 employees operating 24/7. With the wage rates and everything else moving forward, it looks like it's going to be a very timely project. Just we're excited to see this project move forward. We anticipate thousands of people on site doing construction work, not only for the construction of the main project, but also for all the utility work and roadway work and all the other pieces and parts that have to happen. We anticipate that there'll be a number of suppliers that'll come to the market because of this project. And we have a couple other projects that are looking at the area. So it really is an exciting time out in the Indiana Enterprise Center area. So with that said, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Phil Facenda to talk a little bit about the financing and really the work that the Redevelopment Authority will have as part of this project. So.
Thank you, Bill. Redevelopment Authority members. Phil Facenda from Barnes and Thornburg, 201 South Main Street, South Bend. We are serving as project counsel, bond counsel for the project, and it is anticipated. Mr. Shalio gave you some numbers on the overall cost of all this infrastructure. It's anticipated that the bonds will be in an amount not to exceed $50 million. And the means of the financing for those bonds, it was determined that the county, through its redevelopment commission, determined that it is best to be able to take advantage of TIF revenues that are available in that area already, and those that will be available in the future as a result of this project. Together with payments that will be made by General Motors under the development agreement with the county. And to be able to take advantage of TIF, and also for another purpose, which is the county did not want to, and our redevelopment commission did not want to essentially expend general obligation debt limit. Every governmental unit has a general obligation debt limit under the Indiana Constitution. Units usually hold that authority in reserve for absolute emergencies or other large unanticipated financings. In this case, this has been in the works for, as Bill mentioned, a while. And under this structure, what's before you is a resolution to approve a lease. This is a lease financing. This structure is well accepted under Indiana law, well known in the marketplace, well known in the financing marketplace. Eventually, in the late winter, early spring, we anticipate if all of these, if the lease is approved through all the various bodies of the county, we will do a lease financing that will close on bonds sometime in February or early March of 2024. So why the lease? The lease is, again, under Indiana law, you are able to do a lease financing, which will not in any way affect the redevelopment district's general obligation debt limit. And the redevelopment district itself, for us, the size of the financing that we're talking about, needs to do a lease financing because it doesn't have the amount of general obligation debt limit that would be able to finance a $50 million financing. So the lease structure, again, is available, and what is before you is a resolution that would approve a lease between the Redevelopment Authority and the Redevelopment Commission. The Redevelopment Commission will have, it's already had one public meeting. We'll have a public hearing this morning to approve, and hopefully they will approve the other side of that transaction, which is actually entering into with the redevelopment authority and as the tenant paying lease rentals to the redevelopment authority. And that would in turn finance the bonds, because the actual entity that will issue the bonds, the issuer of the bonds is the redevelopment authority. Okay. Both redevelopment authority and redevelopment commission are instrumentalities of the county. I think you're well aware of that. And the bodies are appointed by county, the members are appointed by the county. So the county is involved in the financing and also has to approve this lease. And it is on their agenda this evening to approve this lease. So, so that is the financing. That's the structure of the financing. As far as the bonds, as I mentioned, not to exceed 50 million. As far as the lease, we'd be looking at a final maturity on the bonds of no later than February of 2043. And so just under 20 years from now. Annual lease payments under the lease would be not to exceed $5 million, and a max interest rate of 7.5%. Of course, the financing team is hoping to do better than that, but we have to set outside parameters. So 7.5%. And as I mentioned to you, it's anticipated that the debt revenues, that debt service will be paid from either TIF or other available revenues, including payments from the developer. But a property tax is pledged in the event that those are insufficient. Again, not anticipated, reasonably not anticipated to be used. And also the county has made available local income tax as well, so such that a property tax would not be necessary. So another structure that has been utilized by St. Joseph County in the past, not in this forum, but in another, and a property tax backup provides additional assurance to those who are buying the bonds and allows for a much better interest rate for the county, which results in quite a bit of savings over time. Happy to answer any questions you might have. Oh, one additional factor I wanted to point out, the lease premises is actually roads. And so you'll see that in the lease, there are several segments of roads in the county that are being leased. Why are we leasing existing roads? Again, it is a cost savings measure. You could attempt to lease the assets that you are financing, but that would cause a delay under statute. You cannot pay lease rental on an asset until it is complete and ready for use. And so if it took a year, 2 years before we could get the assets that we're financing completed, we still have to pay bondholders. So that means you have to capitalize interest to pay them, and that's expensive and would add to this $50 million by a nice additional chunk. So that's the reason for the leasing of the existing roads. Again, now I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Bill, we need a copy of this one for Tina. She got the redevelopment commission one. I think we need a redevelopment packet. You do have it? Well, thanks, Mike.
So once it gets all its approvals through us and the redevelopment commission, the county council, are the bonds issued for the full amount and then the clock starts ticking where the interest is paid back to the bondholders?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and that full amount is not to exceed 50 million, could easily be less than 50 million.
Okay.
But we have to set again a parameter, an outside parameter. And then, yes, when we go to issue the bonds, it is anticipated currently that would be issued all at one time. The approvals allow for more than one series of bonds. So if, for instance, the county desired to issue, let's call it $30 million to finance the projects that would be earlier in time, and then come back and finance an additional 15 or $18 million or $20 million of bonds, they could at a later date. It is currently anticipated by the financing team that they're going to do it all at one time.
I have a question. In what event would the the property taxes go up? I guess the doomsday scenario, like what has that happened in the past?
So it has never happened to the county. Again, it would be what we require in order to pass the statutory mechanisms whereby it's not subject, the project is not subject to additional mechanisms under Indiana law when you have a true property tax backing that is expected to pay for the bonds. So a general obligation bond, for instance, it's something where from the get-go, you're anticipating using property tax to pay for that, okay? Under Indiana law, you as long as there's no reasonable expectation that you would actually levy a tax, then you don't go through the other statutory mechanisms for property tax backed bonds. So doomsday scenario is there isn't sufficient TIF revenue, tax increment financing revenue, and or payments from the developer or other revenues available, including a local income tax revenues available, then they would levy the property tax. Again, we look for coverages in order to hit that reasonable expectation test. So when we say coverages, we look at debt service, and we're looking at how much coverage do we have on existing TIF revenues or revenues that would be pledged from the developer or local income tax that would cover the debt service, the anticipated debt service. And just one moment, because we have the financial advisor in the room with us. So I was just asking Steve Dalton, who is the municipal advisor of the county, what the anticipated coverage is right now, and we're at 150%. So in other words, Steve will give a report when we issue the bonds that will show that we have adequate coverage such that we will not, and we don't reasonably anticipate ever having to levy a tax. Again, there are other bond issues out there that the county has made similar pledges of property tax backup that the property taxes have never been levied.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else?
There are no other questions
Thank
or
you.
discussion among the redevelopment authority members. A motion to approve.
Is there no hearing today?
I'm sorry?
Is there no hearing on this?
There is no public hearing on this resolution, sir. A motion to approve resolution 2023-01 would be appropriate if the redevelopment authority so chooses. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Gillian, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Horvath, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Ms. Wilson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolution 2023-01 is approved. Next on the agenda is the lease agreement that Mr. Facenda discussed. By the terms of the resolution, it approves the lease agreement. But to be careful, let's just do a separate motion to also approve the lease agreement as well as the addendum there too. So a motion to approve would be appropriate.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Gillian, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Horvath, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Ms. Wilson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion carries.
At this time, there is no additional business today. I would note that the next meeting is scheduled for January 16th at 8 a.m. We will make sure security is aware that there is a meeting at 8 a.m. so that there's no issues in getting into the building. So at this point in time, we'd have public comment. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes. And Mr. Garrett will keep track of that 3-minute time limit.
So if anyone in the public would wish to speak, please approach the podium, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning. I'll try and be very quick. Mike McManus, 51940 Lilac Road. I'm the fellow that sued you. Nothing personal, but I filed suit against the board, the authority yesterday, because I don't believe that you people were properly appointed by the Board of Commissioners. You weren't interviewed, and that's an essential part of their own law. Again, thank you for stepping up for your service, but I contest it. So I don't believe that what you have just passed has any meaning or authority. And I would also just like to point out is you've just entered into one end of a lease that's going to be signed by the other end of the lease at 9 o'clock or sometime thereafter for property that you don't own yet. You're not going to get that property unless the council passes it tonight. And I'm just wondering, what's the rush here? Because the roads aren't going anywhere and the project's not going anywhere. And Mr. Facenda, I don't think, or Mr. Shalio, this is not just for the battery plant. The battery plant isn't mentioned in any of these documents. It's for a general project out there. It's not just for the battery plant. And also, just one of the things, and again, I appreciate your service. I know you haven't been able to go through this yet, but these documents state as a fact that someone has made a finding of the value of the property, which is being held, the roads, our roads, collateral. And the county is giving up its entire right, title, and interest in the roads. And there is a risk. Nothing may have happened in this county so far, but if you remember the toll road situation of about 10 years ago and other situations like this, there's great risk that the public is going to face attacks. And if the bonds somehow, if we default on the bonds, it's just going to be a disaster for everyone. So again, thank you for your service, but I'm opposing it.
Thank you.
Ms. Wilson, may I pass this up to you? This is just a copy of the lawsuit.
Good morning, Dan Caruso, 305 Compton Street, New Carlisle. Again, welcome. Thank you for your stepping up and thank you for your service. I would like to say that it's been talked that there likely will be no need for a tax levy because we have plenty of protection on these actions. And it said there has never been a tax levy in this county for default on anything like this. But I will point out there was one threatened at the last council get together where the council's hands were tied about the economic development area expansion in New Carlisle, that if that didn't happen, we were up to be sued by GM and it could result in a $350 to $600 property tax increase for every resident of St. Joseph County. So yes, the threat is there. I don't agree with this at all. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for your service today. Welcome to the work of the county. My name is Deborah Durrell, 21677 Otten Road, South Bend. Exciting seems to be the word of the day. And so I am excited to be here. I am impressed that we have so many gray cells at work on these kinds of projects to be able to figure this out. However, I am very concerned because this seems to be an excessive amount of stacking on a new industry that has been very fraught with starts and stops, including finances, materials, labor, and that kind of thing. I do think that we're stacking a lot of different things, depending that there are not going to be any problems with this industry. A lot of us have supported this industry. But I'm really concerned about the excessive amount of stacking on this. I don't put a lot of faith into verbal reassurances, even though we do have some numbers that have been attached to that this morning. A lot of us in the public have had verbal assurances that were very important to us, that were very conveniently rescinded without a lot of explanation. I do have questions about easements along these roadways. I do have questions about the specific properties that may be affected by not only the work and the noise and chaos that goes along with road work, but also the potential property taxes and income taxes. I think some of this is affecting Cleveland Road, just north of Mayflower. And so I think those things, the public would like to see all of those things identified and lined out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, excuse me. My name is Charlotte Wolf, 21439 Osborne Road, Lakeville. Thank you for your service again. However, I do disagree with leasing of our public assets, and just the fact that it hasn't happened in this county. This is a very atypical for this type of project. This is very creative. I have to compliment the Redevelopment Commission on their creativity, but this is not a typical strategy for financing these kinds of things. And the fact that the TIF fund will be utilized almost in its entirety really scares me, because that means that all of the TIF assets are then committed to this project, and there is no other room for other projects, no other room for emergencies. We're basically putting all our eggs in one basket here. The leasing of public assets is something that I really question. And let's see, the other thing that I wanted to mention is that often it is stated in these meetings that if you don't live in New Carlisle or you're not in that area, you have no business having a viewpoint. Well, this hearing should show that everybody in the county has a right to speak, because we're all going to be held responsible for this bond issue. And the other part of it is that we as taxpayers, we need to support our local business, and we do. But as has been stated many, many times, the location of this project requiring all of this infrastructure is in my mind avoidable by working with the city and finding better locations for the project. Apparently this is steamrolling on, and that will not be a concern. We will do it at this place. But as has been rehashed over and over, the low water table, the high water table and the farmland setting of this project makes it extremely incompatible with environmental values and quality of life values in that area. And I can speak as a county member. I don't have to live in New Carlisle, because none of you, or very few of you, live in New Carlisle either. And so why are our voices being discounted just because we don't live in that area? Thank you.
Anyone else in the gallery wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll go online. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand. Morgan, if you could start with Mr. Humbarger, please. Mr. Humbarger, you have the floor. You can state your name and address.
My name is Bob Humbarger, 29987 Herd Road, New Carlisle. And can you hear me?
We can, sir.
Oh, very good. First of all, the lack of transparency of this proceeding is unconscionable. The last thing, and the last thing we need in this county is another layer of bureaucracy. Second, why put our main county roads at risk? If you need collateral, why don't you use all the county-owned property? The redevelopment commission has steadily bought property. You could even put up the city county building for all I'm concerned. Why use the roads that the public use? And last of all, it's like TIF money is free money, but because of the TIF, we taxpayers have all had to pay other county obligations. And where is all the TIF that they've collected for the last 40 years? So I don't, if it would have been done properly, using TIF money to make infrastructure improvements, we wouldn't need so much bond. That's all I've got to say. Thank you. Bye.
Mr. Francis, if you'd like to speak.
Yes, thank you for taking comments. I wish it had been in the form of a public hearing, however, and I commend the authority members for arriving so early. I didn't make it myself, so apologize for not being there in person. However, I mean, I do have a question and concern about the process here, and that is whoever noticed this meeting, it was not noticed until online in the Agenda Center until last or Sunday night. So many people who might have known about it and who would have come can't come. Also, lack of public hearing as you pass something on forward in a rush process in which 3 bodies are going to review it today, with the assumption being made that each body will pass it, I think betrays the public process that should be involved here. Second, I'm sorry that you're presented with this controversial case, but my name is Steve Francis. I'm from Clay Township, so you can see there's representation from people out there in the district, all around the county, who oppose this. Over 1,000 people have signed a petition, so we represent a much larger tip of the iceberg, if you will, of county citizens who oppose this. I oppose using public roads in this sort of scheme to avoid debt limits. I mean, debt limits are there for a reason. The debt limit should be followed. The public roads that we drive on, you're going to put up and transfer property, the title for Cleveland Road from one end to the other, Adams Road from one end to the other, or almost one end to the other, and Timothy Road as collateral or an asset to assure bondholders somehow to kind of get a lower interest rate, and that there is an asset behind this. That's not the proper way that this is usually done. There is a risk. You cannot maintain. There is no risk at all. TIFs bonds have been defaulted on around the country, even though it may not have happened much in St. Joe County. We don't have many county TIF bonds. As far as the other issues, I would like to speak to the finance of it. Number one, the interest payments. This is the worst time to put together a bond at 7% interest. The first annual interest payment, 7% APR, will be $3.5 million. So he has to go. I mean, $50 million in bonds will be doubled by interest payments or more by the end of the 20 years. So it's an ill-advised financial move. Now, the fact that they have to do this is a result of bad negotiation with GM, because you could have negotiated with GM in which you got some money up front in order to conduct some of these things, and then not have to offer the bond right away. Do so when you have assets in the TIF district. Do not use assets that I drive on every day. When I talk to people around the county, they think
Mr. Francis, thank you for your time. Your 3 minutes is up.
Okay, thank you.
Mary, if you could state your full name and address, please.
Good morning, Mary Countryman, 52959 Timothy Road, New Carlisle, Olive Township. Yes, I do live in Olive Township. I do live in New Carlisle. I do travel on these roads that are being put up for collateral. I think this is a bad idea. And I do agree with several of every person that has spoken against this so far. I don't understand how this is as property as collateral, that property that was paid for by federal gas taxes that citizens paid for, how that can be put up as collateral. I think that's a very dangerous slope to be on. Many of us recently have spoke out against this, and as another speaker mentioned, we do live in this area. This is our area. This is our community. And I think this is a bad idea. This project, that's saying it's a new project and there hasn't been a tax levy yet. But as stated, there hasn't been a project like this. And this should concern many of us, especially with the question of property taxes going up and a levy tax. I said the doomsday scenarios, I said no TIF revenue, no other payment available. You're gambling with our property taxes. You're gambling with our money. I said, it just doesn't make sense. And I said, I also had commented to somebody else about this redevelopment authority meeting, and they said, no, it's not at 8 Central. It's not that early in the morning. They said, no, it's later, and they're confusing it with the redevelopment authority with the redevelopment commission. So I feel a lot of people were not even informed enough that this was happening. And it just feels like it's another step of the county trying to get approval and saying, well, we're going to get more people on our side. We're going to add this committee now so we can have more people to say, yes, push this through, when there's literally thousands of people in this area that do not want it. But every article I've read on bonds and TIFs has said that TIFs, when TIF districts have to use bonds, it's the beginning of the end. It's a financial failure. And I hope this is not going to get us deeper and deeper in debt, and especially with gambling on the roads in our community. I am very much against this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Seeing no additional individuals online, Madam President, my suggestion would be a motion to adjourn. You have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. A second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Gillian, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Horvath, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Ms. Wilson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. We are adjourned.